Hi guys, it's Kim, just plugging in my computer here. Glad to be here with you. I have been not here for a while. I went to Metabolic Health Summit where I did do a live from Metabolic Health Summit and then I caught a cold. And so I've been off for a few weeks. It's very hot today and I have a little lemonade. So no unsweetened. Well, I mean it's sweetened, but not with sugar. And I'm glad to be here with you guys. Hello, all the peoples that have joined or will soon to join. I am, hey Linda, hey Lisa, glad to have you guys here with me. What's going on? I didn't really give you a recap, but on Metabolic Health Summit, totally worth the cold. It was worth the price of entry. It was so awesome, super duper awesome. So that was super fun. I had to skip the cruise, which I was supposed to go on just a couple days after I got back, and I was sick. And this is not a time, even if it wasn't the kind of sickness people are afraid of, it's probably not the best time to be coughing in public. So between that and the fact that I didn't feel like getting on an airplane because I didn't feel very well, and life would have kind of been unpleasant, I just decided, maturity. I'm not going to force it. I'm going to stay home. Hey, Paul, it is right now anyway. Later it will be a recording. And yeah, so this is I got a new light. I can't show it to you because it's behind the camera. But I'm so Metabolic Health Summit, super awesome. What happened at Metabolic Health Summit? So my podcast this coming week is all about it. So I'm not gonna I like went through all the speakers on that, so you can catch that if you want details. But just so you know, you can still buy the ticket. If that makes sense. You can't go because it happened already, but you can watch all the recordings. So if you go to metabolichealthsummit.com and if you're like regret that you didn't watch the recordings, you can still get them. Anyway, let's see. Tisa. Wow. Still got a little cough. Tina said, "Can you please advise how sodium works? My ankles and feet swell in the heat and humidity. I've heard salt makes it worse, and I've heard more sodium, potassium, magnesium as that will help. So confused. Please let me know your thoughts and comments. Does sodium help eliminate water, or is it the cause? Thank you so much. This is actually a more complicated subject than you might think. So here's the deal. If you underconsume sodium, you might have water retention and swelling. If you overconsume sodium, you might have water retention and swelling. So the symptoms are actually similar. This is a kind of guess and check situation. So for me, getting enough sodium is super duper important. In fact, I have these, I'm doing a giveaway. By the way, I have these boxes of Element that I'm going to give away. So for me, sodium is super duper important for me to feel well. um, and not me, don't mean in terms of being sick, but in terms of just generally like feeling proper electrolyte balance. So for me, if it's hot and I don't get enough sodium, I feel pretty much like garbage. Um, if you're chronically under sodiumed, it can definitely cause problems. The good news is you can always check. So you can start to up your sodium intake and your magnesium and your potassium as well, and see if your issues improve. The Element website has some good information on it. So I'm just going to go right now, LMNT swelling, right? I just Googled LMNT swelling and see what comes up. So Drink Element is their blog. And there's a thing, does sodium make you bloated? And so you can go to their blog and read up on some of those things. And then Tina says, okay, you drink 2 a day. So, excuse me, guys. I feel fine, and then I realize, oh, talking requires more lung capacity than maybe I have. So, Tina, you might experiment, what happens when you have one instead of two, or, so on and so forth. So you're going to have to find what works for you. And so I'm sorry, there's not a really good answer. In somebody consuming a high carb diet, sodium is probably going to cause problems in terms of that swelling, that retention. But that's a different metabolic milieu than we're in the low carb community. And so some people can have really disastrous edema, swelling issues from under consuming, but that's not to say that some other people might not be affected by over consuming. And you really kind of have to dial it in. So there you go. I know, guess and check. We're all individual. Somebody asked about the book. When's that coming? Within the next few days, it should be done. So very, very soon. All right. So back to Metabolic Health Summit. I'll just talk about it while as questions come in, and then I'll pause and just go back. Some really incredible speakers, and I had a really good time. And obviously, hey, Joni. Serena says, I can tell when I don't have enough electrolytes. I get angry. All right. Yeah, it helps balance you out. Hey, Jean. Yeah, so I had a really good opportunity to sit down with somebody I think is really brilliant about nutrition. So that was awesome. We ended up in the lobby at the same time, and I talked to Zeroff. I probably owe him like a present or something. Lisa said, what's the book? So Dr. Ken Berry and we did a labs course a couple of years ago, and we turned it into a book, and it's in editing right now, and it's pretty much done. So it should be within a week or so, we should have an announcement about how to get your hands on it. We're working out some details about printing. That's what's happening soon. So we're on the last details, people. I'm sure that's a delightful sound. I apologize. I got my IUD taken out today. Will that help me lose weight again? Been installed for a year. Well, I don't know. Kind of depends. Usually not. But kind of depends what else is going on in and of itself. Kind of is it a hormonal IUD or like a copper? Those have different effects on the hormonal system, obviously. But generally speaking, it puts out a little bit less hormones. That's one of the reasons people like an IUD over maybe birth control pills. By the way, I'm not a doctor. This is just stuff I've picked up reading the internet. I did live with a OBGYN for a while. I was her nanny. Anyway. And this was a long time ago. So generally speaking, an IUD is going to put less hormones in your system, exogenous hormones, than say birth control pills. There have been some evidence that some people have some bad hormonal reactions to those things. I totally support people's use of birth control, by the way. I'm going to take a stand on that one. We should all be able to control our bodies that way. And yet we should also pay attention to the side effects. So if there are side effects, you might have to look for another method. And there seem to be some possible side effects with birth control pills and IUDs, any of those kind of hormonal contraceptives. So time will tell if that's something that's a major impact on your weight loss efforts. My guess is it's not the primary driver of weight loss stalls. And so you're going to have to look at some other things potentially. But if the weight just suddenly starts going down, well, then it was that. But then you can look at potentially what your macros look like. What are you consuming? That might have an impact on your intake and your outgoing energy needs. Cheryl, do I think Carb Manager is correct? Well, a broken clock is right twice a day. So yeah, I don't choose to use Carb Manager. It's not as accurate as some of the other ones. Well, chronometer is the one I recommend for most people. So I would not use I don't recommend Carb Manager. Can people be successful on Carb Manager? Sure, absolutely. But it's not one of the ones I recommend. Lily, is it possible to do keto if one has kidney stones? Yes, absolutely. Kidney stones, but when you have kidney stones, there is a definite connection to your diet. And so a lot of kidney stones are calcium based, calcium oxalate, a combination of they're made out of calcium, but there's an oxalate connection. And so, some people find either changing up. So oxalates tend to bind to calcium, and then that can cause a problem in terms of kidney stones. But then it can also be helpful in terms of keeping the oxalates out of the other parts of your system. But the main thing I'll come around to with kidney stones is water consumption. And so when people say sometimes they go on keto and then they have an increase in um, kidney stones, one of the main issues there is that keto, because it's a low carb diet, is also a low water diet. No, I'm not saying don't drink water. I'm saying the food has less water in it, which means you have to be perhaps more conscious about consuming water to replace the water that you're not eating, or the lowered water retention in your system from food. And so definitely making sure you're getting plenty of water is imperative when you are somebody that is prone to kidney stones. But as far as I know, people do great on keto, even if they have a history of kidney stones. Cheryl says, I'm on 1,109 calories. It's so low. I have 15 pounds to lose. Are you losing weight on that? Because then that should resolve itself soon. And if you're not losing weight on that, I would suggest a diet break and perhaps a reverse diet. What is a reverse diet? A reverse diet is a period of time where you gradually increase your calories. So you start increasing your calories. If you started at 1,100, and then you're going to go to 1,150, then you're going to go to 12, then you're going to go to 1,250, then 13, then 1,350, right? You just bump up, bump up, bump up. Primarily, make sure your protein is appropriate first, but then once protein is in the right range, then start bumping up the fat. You can also bump up carbs a little bit, but this is a keto community usually. And so usually it's more likely that someone's going to want to bump up the fat. And so we start bumping up the fat, just getting those calories a little higher and a little higher and a little higher, all the while monitoring that you're not gaining an overly large amount of body fat, right? So you're going to gain a little bit as you start increasing your food intake from more food in your system, glycogen in your muscles, in your liver, food in your digestive tract. So a small amount's going to go up in terms of water weight and just mass in your body. But we don't want to bump up the fat too much because that's going to be counterproductive to your ultimate goals. So, but you might need to check in and do a break and a reverse diet. Rita, can you give a rundown on when to check blood glucose if you want to keep it in check? Yeah. Susan can't hear me. Can I get thumbs up or down if you can't hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear? Is it just Susan? Nobody's saying any. Oh, I'm getting thumbs up. Okay, so it's Susan. Can someone type to Susan to check her sound issues? Because it sounds like it's on her computer. Okay. So, all right, thumbs up on the sound. Got it. Excellent. All right. So blood sugar. So, you want to always test your blood sugar before. So if you're doing this with the finger pricks, right? You got a glucose monitor on your body, it's different, but finger pricks. So before you eat make sure you haven't eaten in at least 4 hours. Check your blood sugar, record your blood sugar, eat the food, check it 30, 60, 90, and 120 minutes later. And you're going to see an arc, right? You're going to see maybe it's 90, then at some point it goes up to 110, then it comes back down to 100, then it goes to 95, then it goes to 87, right? So you want to see what that arc is over 2 hours. If like at 1 hour it's totally back to normal, you probably are good then, right? But as long as it's elevated, you want to see when did it come down. And I just test every half an hour or so. Thing you should know. Glucometers. Now, Keto Mojo uses technology that's more accurate than this, but on most glucometers, the range of error is 20%. 20%, which means you might read 80 when you're 100, or you might read like 118 when you're 100, or so there's a big range of error. So you should take that in consideration that if you're freaking out that your blood glucose was 85 and now it's 92 and you can't get it back to 85, 92 and 85 are the same number essentially in terms of the quality of being able to test. So just so you know, be aware of that. Keto Mojo's meter under 100 is supposed to be accurate to about 5 points, so a tighter accuracy rate. The higher it gets, the more that increases. But I think if you're like at 120, it's only maybe like 6 by then, right? It's just a little less, little more than 5 points. So, and these are in American units. You can change the Keto Mojo to be in European units, but what I'm speaking in terms of numbers are American units. So that's how I would test glucose around food. But you have to be really clean is the way I say it. I don't mean like in terms of ingredients, but you can't be like, okay, I'm gonna have this dinner, but I had like a snack an hour ago and I'm gonna no, like you need a good space where you hadn't eaten until you start testing. Then you can't be like, and then I'll have a coffee. No, you gotta wait. So if you're doing the testing bit, I'm not saying you can't have a coffee. I'm just saying if you're doing this like accurate testing and you're testing one thing, you can't add other variables or else that test is no longer an accurate test of the variables you are trying to test. So you got to be clean around that. Allah says, I was keto for 3 years, then I started carnivore, lost more than 40 pounds, feel great, got my blood glucose, it's 102. It's the first time it's been over 100. Okay, so any single fasting glucose, totally not an issue, right? Because a fasting, like maybe you slept badly that night, right? Like any one fasting, I mean, obviously if it's 300, pay attention to that. But if it's like it was 102, but then it's usually 98, like very similar numbers. By the way, these are, if you do this, I'm assuming that Allah did this at a lab, like with a doctor. Those are more accurate than the numbers I talked about, but there's still a range of tolerance for error. Nothing is 100% spot on. Word accurate isn't even right. Precise is the word, probably. Nothing is quite that precise in terms of these measurements. But there is some evidence that people who are on carnivore diets might have a slightly increased fasting glucose number. So it's possible your fasting glucose is up a little bit over what it was when you were keto. However, your A1C is then a good look at what your average glucose is. And so potentially your fasting glucose might have gone. So this happened to me on carnivore. Like my fasting glucose went from like the 80s to the 90s, but then my A1C went down like zero 0.3, right? So my average glucose was lower, but my fasting glucose was a little bit elevated. And that's not uncommon on carnivore. So you say your A1C was 5 point something. So that depends. 5.1, I'm perfectly happy with. It was 5.7, I'm not so happy with it. So it really kind of depends from there. But I would potentially maybe get a glucometer and start tracking your fasting glucose in the morning and then at various times of the day. And you can then get a more accurate thing. Lisa says, does Chronometer tell you if something is keto or not? No, and I don't actually recommend any of the apps that rate things on a keto scale. Why is that? Because they give terrible advice. There are these apps. I think Carb Manager has one where you're like, this gets a grade A for keto, and this gets a B, and this gets a C. But when I actually look at them, I'm like, oh, that's not right. Like it gave like a bell pepper a F and let you have like all like a low carb tortilla. And I'm like, please, for the love of all that is holy, let people eat. It's a better nutritional choice to eat a bell pepper than the anyway, I have issues. So yeah, I would say chronometer doesn't tell you that, but the carbs will. So I've never done a screen share on this thing. Um, when you're, I don't want to mess it up. When you're in chronometer, you can enter a food and it'll tell you what the carbs are, right? Hopefully, any app will do that. You enter the food, it'll tell you what the carbs are. Now, all of us, hopefully, who have survived thus far, know how to do a general budget. What does that mean? You have $20 in your wallet, and all the credit card machines are out. You have 20. I'm getting beeping noises in my ear. I don't know which app is doing it. Sorry, guys. Um, you have $20. Let's say you had $25, whatever. It's 30, whatever. Just pick a number, right? You know how many dollar bills you have in your wallet. And you can only spend dollars today. And you have to get through the day with that many dollars. So you go to the store and you're like, I am hungry. I'm going to buy something. And you see that it's $20 and you have $25. And you think, will that meet all my needs for the day? Um, so yeah, it's just a budget. So you're just adding it up and you're making choices. And there are some strategically poor choices, right? Like if I went and spent all of my 20 carbs or 30 carbs or whatever the carb number is on this food, I would have none left for the day. And if I was like, hey, it's worth it, I really want that food, and then you like maybe it's a special occasion and you really want an artichoke, even though it's going to be 20 grams. I don't know, it's not, but you want this omelet that has all these vegetables in it, and you're like, that is what I want that, and I'm just gonna have a steak for dinner. I'm not gonna have any vegetables. I'm not gonna have any of that. I mean, you don't. I'm exaggerating. You probably could have a few, right? But it's like, okay, well then I have a budget and I've stayed within my budget. That's like the most important part of keto. In now, is that the most important part of overall nutrition? No. You need to make sure you're getting your vitamins and minerals and an appropriate amount of protein. But to stay in ketosis, the carb budget takes front and center. But then, you know, just like with a monetary budget, you're not just trying to get the most calories for your dollar. I mean, some people might, but you're also trying to make sure you stay healthy and include those things when you go grocery shopping with your budget, right? So there's multiple factors you're trying to factor into what you want to choose to eat. But in terms of keto, the carb number is a primary concern. So that's how you do it. So I don't need to know, right? Because it's like I think it's Carb Manager. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But the app will say this is a terrible keto choice. For I don't know, bell peppers. I somehow have a memory that it said something, and I like bell peppers, whatever. But I'm having an ounce of bell pepper in my salad, which is 1 gram of carbs. Is that really that bad a choice? No, right? So it's all sort of relative, and you're just trying to it's just a budget. So I look at it that way. Okay. Deborah says, don't forget to hit the thumbs up for me. So if you're on YouTube, subscribe and get notifications. And if you're on Facebook, because I'm on both places right now, like the page, follow. I appreciate you. Please. Anyway, all right, let's see. Why does A1C sometimes go up on strict keto? 6 months into keto went from 5.7 to 4.9. Now, 9 months later, it's 5.4. I lowered my carbs and A1C went up. I did have COVID though. Okay, so that's more likely to be the cause. Although some people do find their blood sugars go up for a variety of reasons. Just so you know, the number of carbs you eat is the primary driver of high glucose. Lots of other things affect glucose. Undersleeping will raise your glucose. Overstressing will raise your glucose. So if you're in a very stressful period of life or you have an illness, your blood glucose might go up even though you're eating like basically 0 grams of carbs. Kat says, my doctor did labs but was not fasted, said it didn't matter. Don't believe them. Yeah. So why never believe them about the fasting? Here's why. So triglycerides. What are triglycerides? Triglycerides are a glycerol molecule attached to 3 fatty acids. What do we use for energy? Fatty acids. So when we are eating a high fat diet, our fed triglycerides are very high because they're the energy source we're using. So it's very normal that if you're eating a high fat diet, literally you are in the process of digesting that fat at the moment you are getting your blood drawn. Don't do it. Your triglycerides will look crazy. That's why. That's why you want to be fasted. Um, all right. Let's see what else. I love a good straw. This is my home straw. It's got green polka dots on it. All right. So yeah, a lot of doctors will say, "Oh, it doesn't matter." And I think it's really that like they're the average patient, you can see I'm not a doctor. The average patient, they can't fast as long as they need to fast to do the appropriate overnight fast. But, I've talked to Dave Feldman about it, who does a lot of cholesterol testing and lipid testing. You want to be between 12 and 14 hours fasted. And if your doctor says it doesn't matter, here's the problem. Your doctor says it doesn't matter. And then you're like, okay. And then you get the test done, and then the results come back all screwy. And then your doctor's like, okay, so you're going to need a lot of drugs. And you're like, not good. So make an excuse why you can't do it then. Go back in the morning. Karen says, opinions on coffee. Does it affect blood sugar or something? For some people. For most people, it does not. For some people, it does. And in fact, coffee, just as a separate topic, for some people, coffee raises triglycerides as well. So some people abstain from coffee around their blood draw if they can't figure out why their triglycerides are as high as they are on keto, and they come down. Not true of everybody. A lot of people, no ill effects from an appropriate amount of caffeine. Obviously, too much caffeine is not good for anybody. But there's just individual variation on the coffee thing. Claudia, do you know if fasting more than 12 hours before labs worsen the results? For some tests. So if you are fasting for a long time, that's why I say 12 to 14 hours is the appropriate level for your blood labs. If you fast for a long time, your LDL might go crazy high. So don't be fasting. So that means schedule, if your doctor is a doctor that draws blood in the lab, then make your doctor's appointments, your annual, in the morning and don't eat. But then make sure you ate about 14, 13 hours before that. So if it's like your doctor's appointment is at 10, kind of means you need to eat around 8. So maybe a little later, but I prefer to, my doctor's always sent me to a LabCorp or a Quest. And so I just make my Quest or LabCorp appointment for like 8 in the morning, and then I eat my last meal around 6:30, and everything works out perfectly. So Deb, yeah, they will do the blood work. So they don't know this. They don't know that these things are a problem. They just take the blood work. So you need to say, no, I don't want my blood drawn right now. I'm coming back in the morning. They will not take care of you. You need to take care of yourself. Um, Allah said, "Thank you for your answer. I found the number for A1C. It's 5.4. Should I worry?" I mean, I wouldn't say you should worry. I would say 5.4 for me is the upper cutoff of what I think I want to see in people. Again, not a doctor, but knowledgeable. And that's the limit that Dr. Barry and I set in the lab book that when you're above 5.4, you start getting into sketchier territory. Obviously, it's like just a bit of a problem at 5.5. At 6.0, it's a much bigger problem. At 6.2, it's a bigger problem, right? So it's exponential. But 5.4 is kind of the cutoff of what if if they asked me to determine where prediabetes should start, it should start at 5.5. So you're at the top of the range, but it's not a bad number in any way. Dave said, or David, before I go to bed, my glucose is 85. First thing in the morning, it's 100. Why is it higher in the morning? So you have a situation that is very common and not a problem called the dawn phenomenon. So the dawn phenomenon is basically when we go to sleep, at some point in the night, or in the morning, really, but like 3 in the morning, not our cortisol starts to rise, and it peaks about the time we wake up. It's part of that waking up cycle. Cortisol will drive up blood sugar. So it's the dawn phenomenon. It's driving up your blood sugar. It's supposed to, give you that energy burst when you get out of bed, right? Like a little bit of extra glucose. Not really a problem as long as it's reasonable, and 100 is reasonable. If your blood glucose at night is 85, then you're probably looking at having an average blood glucose much lower than a problem. And so that's the dawn phenomenon. It's just a person thing. It happens to everybody to some degree. It's just that for some people it's very small, and for some people it's a little more noticeable. For diabetics, it's very noticeable, but it doesn't mean you're metabolically damaged that it happens to you. It happens to a lot of people. Joni says biotin is not a good before test. Yeah, there are several things that you want to be careful of around your blood labs testing. This is all in the book, which is biotin screws with your numbers, especially your thyroid numbers. So if you take biotin in any of your supplements, you want to discontinue that supplement for maybe a week before your testing. All right, there are a few things like that, but biotin's a biggie. Debbie used Own Your Labs. Own Your Labs is a great company. It's a direct to consumer. And it's owned by Dave Feldman and Siobhan Huggins, who you can check a box to get 10% off all of your order to give you a 10% discount, but then all your data anonymized. So, you don't have to worry about privacy. Anonymized data supports research in the low carb community. So you're giving back and getting a discount. So it's nice. Ownyourlabs.com. Am I able to say how much the book will be? I think it will be at $14.95 for the digital copy, and we're not 100% sure on the print copy. It kind of depends how many orders we get. The more orders we get, the lower we can make the price. We're trying to make it like $25, but it may end up being $27 for the print version. But don't quote me on that one. But I do know that the digital version will be $14.95. And if you order a print one, you get a digital one as well. Paul says, what's the name of the book? It's going to be Common Sense Labs, the book. So yeah, there you go. All right. Element sent me this handy dandy little cooler thing. It's heavy. I could clock somebody with this. I think it might double as a weapon or a weight. Anyway, it's heavy, but it keeps things very cool. Debbie says, my dawn effect kicks in at 3 a.m., wide awake and full of energy by 4. That's not good. We definitely work on that. So yeah, sleep is super important. So definitely work on that in terms of what time of the day, sleep hygiene. Let's talk sleep hygiene. What time of day do you cut off caffeine is a question there, right? So cutting off caffeine early in the day, super important. Um, Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep, is a great resource. And he suggests switching to decaf no later than noon, which I drink coffee late in the day. So I'm gonna order some decaf espresso and see how that goes. Um, Shutting off electronics an hour or two before bed, keeping the lights dim at night, um, making sure that your body is like your room is cool, but your body's not too cool. In fact, if you feel cold in your extremities while you're going to sleep, that actually is a negative. So it's like you want the room cool, but you want your hands and feet warm. There's some sleep hygiene stuff, but getting a good solid night's sleep, I know after menopause for a lot of people is a real struggle, but working to get that good sleep is so essential to proper health. You know, there's some really awful data about what sleep deprivation does to us, um, in terms of metabolically. It makes you very, very insulin resistant. It reduces your ability to lose weight significantly. So it's like pushing the boulder up a hill. And so I hate to see so many people come to me, and are like, I need to dial in my nutrition. And I look at their nutrition, it's not even really that bad, but they're not sleeping, they're not exercising, all this other stuff's going on. And I'm like, it's not the nutrition, it's your other life stuff. Now, getting the nutrition right is very important, but the difference between eating 20 grams of carbs and 10 grams of carbs versus sleeping for 8 hours or four, I can tell you that one has enormous impact, one has hardly any for most people. So, or, there are always outliers and people that will affect, but ultimately, for some reason, we got the idea that it's all about food when a lot of it is about a lot of other things. I'm not saying food's not important. I am saying that, even on a low carb diet, you look like you're eating a high carb diet if you're not sleeping, like metabolically, which is unfortunate. Now, Karen mentions that since junior high school, she notices she sleeps about 6 hours. The exact number of hours of sleep each person needs can vary. For some people, they do great on 6 hours. They feel energized, they feel awake, they feel all that thing. Um, but, other people, they need 9. So it just really depends. Um, Debbie says, I go to sleep by 8:30. I'm always awake between 4 and 5. Yeah, you go to sleep very early. So that's what, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 to 8 hours. That's pretty good. But yeah, some people do say that they just naturally wake up a little bit earlier when they go low carb. And if you feel just as good as you used to feel on more sleep, then that's not really a problem. So, even though we say 8 hours is what people need, um, it's somewhere between usually 7 and 9, though there are outliers who do great on 6. You'll know if you do. Like, I don't think we fool ourselves for long about the sleep, right? You're like, I am not as sharp as I should be. And we might learn to cope, but when you're coping instead of thriving. So for some people, really focusing on getting that sleep worked out is so essential. Like, it can raise your metabolic rate to a large degree, if you get your sleep dialed in. So Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep, is a recommendation, and he has a podcast. He does like 20-minute podcasts about single topics. You might want to look that up. He goes to my gym. So if you have questions, I can pester him. He's a very fit man, by the way. He did an episode. Let's see if I can find it. He did an episode, and then I asked him questions about it. The episode was about weight loss. I think it's a 2-part episode. Let me see if I can find it. It's in here somewhere. scroll. I have a lot of podcasts that I listen to. I don't watch them, I listen to them. Now I can't find it. Anyway, Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep, and then look for, oh, there it is. It's called the Matt Walker Podcast. And he's got a lot of hair. And there's one of them is, oh yeah, sleep and weight gain. It's a 2-part episode from February, and it's very interesting around weight and sleep. So there you go. And yeah, shift work is a real problem with sleep. I am sorry about that. And it is Denise, Matt or Matthew Walker, Walker, like Walker. And it is true that as we age, oh, car alarm. As we age, sleep gets a little wonkier. It's true, and more for women, it seems, than for men. I would say if you're a woman who's approaching menopause and you notice your sleep got all screwy, that's the technical term, talk to your doctor about potential bioidentical hormones, because ultimately that sleep, it's a killer. You gotta do what you gotta do to get the good sleep. There are things like chili pads or oolers where they're like a cooled bed sheet under you that can be very helpful for some people in terms of sleep quality. And so, yeah, sleep, very important, very, very important. And other than saying that over and over again, I don't know how to help you. But look up Matt Walker. It's important. And I think a big thing that a lot of us can do, which, I get it. I'm in bed at night with my phone. It feels like me time. I want my me time to look at useless TikToks. But at the end of the day, you'll be so much better if you don't do that. And I am saying that to myself as well. So anyway. All right. What else we got? I made some lemon curd today, but one of the problems with lemon curd, it's delicious, but it's really high fat. And some of you might be like, Kim, but keto, it's high fat. And I'm like, well, for me to lose body fat, I need to lower the fat. So what am I going to do? I'm going to skip my lemon curd. And lemon curd is something that I love on Greek yogurt. So good. If you haven't done that, so anyway, I came across some ways to make your lemon curd lower fat. And so I made some today that just had allulose, lemon, and eggs. That's it. So no butter. Though I'm sure I could have put in like a tablespoon of butter and it would have been a little bit even better. It was delicious. But yeah, you can make it without the butter. Who knew? I put the recipe up on my Instagram. Basically, you heat some lemon juice in a little saucepan and you add the sweetener to it, and then you kind of get it to not smoking, steaming, and then you beat 2 eggs in a cup and pour the hot liquid into the eggs to temper the eggs, beating it constantly so that it doesn't just turn into a scramble. Then you pour that mixture back into the pan and cook it on medium. I'm a little bit of a daredevil with my custards. I cook them kind of like medium-ish rather than low, and they cook faster, but you have to know. So safer lower for longer, but I cook them kind of on medium for just a minute or two and they thicken up real fast. So I just keep stirring it so it doesn't turn into scrambled eggs. I add some lemon zest to that, and then you have to strain it because you end up with like left eggs in there because the egg whites, they just cook so fast. But like most of the egg white goes into the lemon curd, but you do end up with these stringy things. So you do really want to strain it. You end up with kind of this mass of gluck that's little strings of egg white. And so but then you end up with this lovely smooth lemon curd that you can add a dollop to Greek yogurt. You can put some on Maria Emmerich's protein bread. So good. Anyway, that just makes a little bit. That makes like, it's 2 eggs and some lemon juice, right? So you might want to make more. But if you just want to try it, that's an easy one. Most people, this time of year, don't most people have a lemon or 2 around their house? I do. My mother has an enormous bowl of lemons, so there's always lemons at her house. Karen said, oh, somebody asked what my favorite flavor of Element is. So I also like Redmond's Relight, by the way. I just have a lot of boxes of Element. Um, Honestly, my favorite flavor is grapefruit, but it's a limited time flavor. But they're opening up grapefruit, I believe, in like a week. So I think it goes live May 31st. So grapefruit is my favorite. But I also really, this one is orange. It kind of tastes like Tang. So that one's really nice. Oh, it's open now, Serena. Okay, so go to Element and you can check out. I have a coupon code, but whatever, just go. You can go. I'll put the coupon code up later, but I have watermelon here and then raspberry. You know what raspberry? Wow, that's an extreme close up. Sorry, guys. Raspberry is delicious in Starbucks passion tea. So good. Get the plain Starbucks passion tea, put an the raspberry in it. I have that same tea. It's a Tazo brand tea, so we make it at home. So such a good combo. The citrus is nice. It's a little more traditional Gatorade-y flavor. I don't love watermelon, but it definitely tastes like a Jolly Rancher. I just don't. It's not my favorite, but it's super fun. Um, I'm not a huge fan of the spicy flavors, but if you like spicy things, that's kind of fun. And I have chocolate salt and chocolate mint salt. The mint was at limited edition, but the chocolate salt so good in a like a protein shake. So good in a chocolate protein shake. I love that. And it's great like sprinkled on things because it's like got that salty chocolatey thing. So I like many of them. But if I'm just looking to sip on one, it kind of rotate. But also what's fun is if you take out a pitcher, you can mix flavors. I think the citrus and the orange mixed together are delicious. So you get a big pitcher, mix them together, water the appropriate amount of water for two of them, and you can change out the amount of water you use to suit your purposes. And then then I've got it ready to go in the fridge. I like everything incredibly cold. Ice cold with as much ice as possible. Any beverage, I want it cold. Sometimes I want it hot, but most of the time I want it cold. So anyway, so there are a lot of good flavors, but right now you can get grapefruit, which is definitely a special one. I love it. Love it. Debbie says my mom in Half Moon Bay, oh, I know where that is. That's not far from me. Has 2 Meyer lemon trees. We just squeezed about 100 lemons and froze the juice. Nice. Karen says, is it important to get when you get sleep? If you get lots of sleep but are awake at night, oh, I see. It's not ideal, but it's certainly not it's not super bad. Put it that way. Right? So the biggest problem I think with shift work is yeah, it does kind of screw with your circadian rhythm. But the ultimately I think just as long as you get enough sleep, you're doing pretty well. Um it's more around just undersleep that's a problem. So yeah, there you go. Paul says, I like the free sample, 2 tubes splurge. Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, Paul? On their website, they have the recipe. So if you go to drinkelement.com, they have the recipe for making Element. Obviously, the flavors, you're going to have to come up with your own version of what the flavors are. But in terms of like how much magnesium, how much sodium, how much potassium, where you can get those from, they have that publicly for people who want to make their own, and you can just add flavoring to it. You can get a drink mix that doesn't have any carbs or sugars in it, and you can mix up your own electrolyte beverage if you want to. Um, this is this is actually so. I'm gonna a little confession. Really wanted lemonade. So I bought one of those at the store. It's like it's sweetened with aspartame. It's not like my favorite choice, but I really was happy to have I think what is it? Minute Maid. It's like zero carb. It's like a diet soda. It's not what I drink all the time, but I had this with an orange in it and that was delicious. It's just, that first week you're really hot. I just was like, I want lemonade. So, we make choices sometimes around ingredients. So, I like to be transparent for you guys. It's so good, sorry. Just you can make your own lemonade for sure. You just get some lemon and mix it together, and the citrus salt is pretty lemonade-y as well. But, every we all draw our lines. I used to drink, like, 6 to 6 plus Diet Cokes a day. When I was growing up, I was drank them all the time. So, I don't drink them anymore except a couple times a year, and every once in a while, that's okay. It's not really it's like, what do they say? Big rocks and small pebbles. You gotta worry about the big rocks mostly, not the small pebbles. Anyway. Alright. Tiffany, be aware it is a limited time flavor. Don't wait too long because it might be out by the time you want to order it. Alright. Iced Earl Grey tea. Oh, that sounds good, Paul. Serena says same, Diet Coke, Pepsi, etc. If it's in the house, I can't moderate it. Now I can. It's weird. I don't know who I am. I don't know how I became somebody that can moderate. My cabinets are full of junk food right now, like keto junk food, because I came home from the conference. I got like brownies and cookies and candies, and I'm like, I kind of was looking at them the other day, and I was like, I don't even think I'm going to eat these before they go bad. I like put a bunch in the freezer. I was like, "Meh." And they're good. It's very confusing. It's very confusing to go from a food addict to someone that can moderate food. I mean, I still have the tendencies. I still have to watch myself. If there's food in front of me, it is very hard for me not to eat it. But when it's in my cabinet, I forget it's there. And that is weird. I don't know because this was not me in my past. Anyway, Debbie says I put 3 sliced strawberries and a bunch of fresh mint. Ooh, yummy. I love lemon, mint, and cucumber in a big pitcher of water. Um, Nancy says, I do not know how people add a full packet to a drink or water to use a full packet. Yeah, I can. Like, I would say the first time I had a packet in water, it was too salty. Now, there's little bottles of water and there's big bottles of water. If I put a whole element in a little bottle of water, like the crystal geyser size, which I think what are those? They're not 8 ounces because that's like this big. I'm always like, you see those little kid bottles of water, and you're like, that's so little, and it's like 8 ounces, and you're like, wait, 8 ounces is a serving. But like the 12-ounce bottles of water, in one of those, it's a little intense. I still like it, but it's a little intense. But if it's like I have a bunch of like tumblers that are like 16 ounces, plenty. It's good. I'm good with that. So yeah, I can put one in a bottle of water for sure. Like this is not what I use, but my hydro flask for what take to work out is it holds about 20 ounces, but I put some ice in it, so it's got like 16 ounces of liquid, and a whole packet of Element doesn't taste salty to me in there. So generally speaking, I mean, a good rule of thumb is if you feel like something tastes incredibly salty to you, then maybe you don't need that much sodium. You can use your taste buds a little bit on that. So, yeah, I do it. I like salt. I will like eat salt off my hands. So, like I'll pour some salt in. What's weird is though I can't drink I like if I just put salt in water without sweetener or flavoring, it makes me want to gurk. Ugh. But I can eat salt like straight. So we all have our thing. I think I have like trauma from like, ocean ingest. Like, when you go swimming in the ocean when you're a kid and you aren't good at like fixing your breathing to opening mouth, and you get the salt seawater in your mouth, and I don't know. I think I have bad memories from that or something. So just like pure salt water tastes terrible to me. Rita said, "What exercises are you favoring at this time?" Um, well, I will admit to having taken a little bit of time off of the gym since I was sick. I still did walks when I could, but I wasn't going into the gym, partially because my lungs are a little bit compromised. And I just know people are really sensitive to people coughing around them, and I didn't want to be that person. But I'm back now. And what exercise is my favorite? I like leg day. Leg extensions, leg curls, leg press, all of those, Romanian deadlifts. Um, I don't love the glute bridge, but I do them. And so that's kind of my leg day. I do, and then I'll do sometimes one leg at a time on the leg press to do a little calf work. I kind of skimp on the calf work. I have pretty meaty calves. Um, and then upper body, I mean, what do I do? Like I do the wide grip pull down, I do a lat row, I'll do a bicep curl, I'll do assisted pull-ups, I'll do a pec fly. So I kind of just try to think about all of the muscles in my body and going through and making sure I'm hitting, the major ones, which you can do compound movements on a lot, and then doing some minor accessory work around some of the other muscles just to get them properly fatigued. So I do 3 days a week, full body. Sometimes it depends on my timing. I'll either do 3 days a week full body, or I'll do 2 days a week. Well, 1 day a week full body. And then the other 2 days a week, I'll do a split where I'll do upper body one, lower body the other. So I'm at least hitting every body part twice a week. It kind of depends on how much time I have and what's going on. My gym routine takes me about an hour at this point. When I first started, it took about 2 hours because I was confused. I would be like, "What am I doing now?" But that's about there. Um, Deborah says, "I'm so thankful I have located suppliers of redmond salt and element in New Zealand." Well, great. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, guys, we're coming up on 6 o'clock for me here in California. So I think I'm going to wrap it up. My voice is also starting to go. So thank you for spending your hour with me. I appreciate you all. I will let you know what's going on next week, and take care, everybody. Oh, by the way, on the Ketonist on Facebook, that's what it's called. I have a little survey, and I'm going to do a drawing for people that do the survey. I'll put that survey link in the notes for this video once it's uploaded, so it'll be then on YouTube as well. But just so you know, there's a little survey, and taking the survey enters you in a giveaway. Not everyone will get something, but I'm going to do a drawing, so it's an entry, and I'm going to give away some elements and some other things that you might like. So just so you know, I'll put the link after this recording is done. I'll put the links there. All right, guys. Take care, everybody.